In this video, we will do a couple of things that we have not yet covered. The first is how to basically convert the data in a form that works well with Tableau, and then how to use multiple data sources in the same Tableau file. And then finally, we'll try to draw a couple of charts from the textbook problems. So the first problem that we'll work with is problem 11, which has data on 4 manufacturers of automobiles and their production in each of the 5 years. And as we can see that this data is in a format that will be a little different than what we have worked with in Tableau. So let's start opening this data set in Tableau. This is the auto production data set, which you can find either on MindTap or on the link to the course. So we will point Excel to this file. It's called auto production, and then we open it. And when we import this in Tableau, we can see off the bat that something is different than what we've seen. Here, Tableau did not recognize that these are headers for our variables and that we have production. And that's essentially because of the nature of the data set. The data set is kind of like that. And in this data set, it is throwing Tableau off because of an extra line here. So how do we resolve this? Well, Tableau has a utility built in which is called DataInterpreter, and it will do some of the job for us. If we click on the review results, what we see is that Tableau has looked at our data and then figured out that some data can be excluded and that some of them could be column or field headers. So here it saw that production was being repeated all through. It deleted these values, and then Tableau will append the word production in millions of vehicles before each of these years and then treat them as columns now. So this is still good, but this has a lot of extra clutter. So the name is now data.production, millions of vehicles, year 1. We just want this as year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. So we can do some editing here right off the bat. We'll just delete the extra space and the word production. So we'll just double click and then delete the things we want to delete, and then delete this again. And now we have year 4. As we're deleting this, we should be careful that, if you notice that there's a space here between year and vehicles. If we delete this and keep the space, and Tableau will append the space to the variable, and this will actually become the first value because it has a space followed by the letter Y. So I'm going to just make sure that I delete the space before as well. So now we have these 4 or 5 columns each for the year. Now there's another problem with this. Typically Tableau works with data in the long format where each column is one series. Here we have data in the white format where we have years 1, year 2, year 3, but they're all capturing the same variable, which is production. So we can then correct this here as well. We will transpose the data, or what Tableau calls pivot it. So we choose all our columns, years 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4 and 5. And then right click and click on this pivot. So as we pivot this, now Tableau has the data in long format where this header, this column is the years, and this is the production. So we can correct this here itself. Sort of pivot fields, we'll just call this years, and we call this production. So now we have our production and years, and we can go to the worksheet, and then we can start creating the visualizations that we're asked to do. In part A, we have to create a line chart for all these years with years 1 through 5. And then we have to have the manufacturers on the same line, on the same graph. So essentially what we do is we can move years to columns, and then we can move production to rows, and we can transform this into a line. So we have this line chart, but this is now combining all the manufacturers together. Next, we want this to be separated out by manufacturer, so we can then move our manufacturer to color, and we have this nice visualization where each color denotes a manufacturer. We see that for Toyota, which is our red, the production increased through years 3 and then declined and then has picked up again in year 5. Hyundai, on the other hand, had a steady increase till year 3 and then has really shot up in years 4 and 5. So this is a quick way to first convert the data and make it into a form that Tableau would work with, specifically into the long format versus the white format, and then using the tools to visualize things. Part 2 of the problem asks us to construct a clustered bar chart, which is just another way of visualizing the same thing, but now we'll cluster them by manufacturer. And each bar will represent the year, the production of the manufacturer in each of the years. So we go back to Tableau, then open a new sheet, and we can actually use Show Me for this. So if we go to manufacturers and years and production, see that Show Me has a bunch of options here. These are single bar charts, and then here we have the clustered bar charts. We click here, we get our nice cluster for each manufacturer. Now here the colors denote the production for each of the years. Now let's say we have a different problem. Here, instead of just clustered bar charts, we want to create a stacked bar chart. Now this is problem 16, and here we have various age categories and the type of smartphones that each of these demographics uses. And each of these numbers denotes a percentage. For example, in the age groups 18 to 24, 9% of users use a smartphone and only 5% of users have no phones. Whereas in the senior citizen category, we have 11% using a smartphone and 44% having no cell phone. So if we were to plot these, all of them will add up to 100%. So this is a stacked bar chart where all of these individual components add up to 100%. Unlike the stacked charts we've done before, where the numbers may be different because they may be aggregating, let's say, production over several years. So here the data is smartphone, but we want to create this in the same Tableau workbook without creating a new workbook for this new data source. And doing that is fairly easy. We go to a new sheet and we go to data. In data, click on this new data source button, and then we direct Tableau to where we have saved the file. This is smartphones, so I'm gonna just open up the smartphone file and click open. Now this file, again, it's in a nice format where we don't have any other extra clutter. So Tableau recognizes right away that we have 4 series. We have age, smartphone, other cell phone, no cell phones. Now the problem with this is again the data on the same entity, the cell phone percentage usage, but is again in the white format. So it makes a job very easy if we can convert this into, again, a long format, and then we can very easily create a stacked bar chart or however visualization tool we want to use, whatever tool. So again, I choose these 3 columns, right click, and then pivot them. Once we pivot them, we can just call this, let's say, type, and we can call this percentage. And then we go back to our sheet, which is sheet 4. Here, as we notice that we had these things in decimals, so when we see the data, we have these in decimals, but they're actually percentages. So we can tell Tableau that we actually have percentages, not decimal fields. So we go to percentage, right click, and click on default properties, then go to number format. And here we can choose percentage with 2 decimal places. So if we now look at this data, we have them correctly specified as 5.0. Well, they're actually run, so we don't even need the 2 decimal places. So we can again reset that, default properties, number format, and then we can just delete these number percentages because we have rounded numbers. So now to create a cluster bar chart, we would we want columns to be age groups because we want to have a separate chart for each age group. So age as columns, then percentage as rows. Now they all are adding up to 100% because they are all proportions. and to see what categories each of these bars sections constitute, we can just move type to color. And here we see nicely that we have various visualizations. Smartphones have the heaviest usage in the 25 to 34 category. But again, the problem with stack chart is that it's hard to visualize the actual share of the second and third tier of charts. So we could, if we want to see other cell phones, we can just scroll that, and now we have it with reference to the last category. So this is a stacked bar chart where all of these add up to 100%. And the neat thing about this is that now we have multiple data sources in the same workbook. If we wanted to create a dashboard or do visualizations, we could call upon these two data sources. And if you create a new sheet, now we have an option of using either the auto production or the smartphone data source. So let's see how a stack chart would have looked different if we had done auto production. So here, let's say we have manufacturers in columns, and we have production as rows, and then we have years as color. So here we see that these things do not add up to 100 because they're not supposed to. They are just the number in millions of cars manufactured by each of these manufacturers in a year. So this is in contrast to a stacked bar chart where we will have them adding up to 100%.